Reading with your kids.
Well, howdy there, partner. Why don't you mosey on in, take a load off, make yourself feel at home. Howdy, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the wonderful city of Boston, Massachusetts. We have a great guest for you today. She is the author of the Hickory Dock Tales series. She's coming to us from Ocate Mesa in New Mexico. And we think you're just going to love her. Her name is Linda Harkey. We would be so very, very happy if you would visit readingwithyourkids.com/yummy. readingwithyourkids.com/yummy. Go there and find out about the easiest way to snack smart and do good. We're talking about Love with Food. Love with Food helps you discover new, organic, all-natural, and gluten-free snacks delivered directly to your door every single month. And membership starts as low as $7.99 a month. And this is why we love Love with Food so much. Love with Food will donate a portion of the proceeds to help fight childhood hunger in the U.S. and all around the world. Love with Food donates to organizations like Feeding America and the Global Food Banking Network. So join us to help end childhood hunger one meal at a time. Visit readingwithyourkids.com/yummy to say goodbye to boring grocery store selections and to start snacking smart and doing good with Love with Food. We have had guests on the show from all over the world, but I think this is the first time that we are speaking to a guest on top of a mountain, coming to us from on top of Ocate Mesa in New Mexico. She is the author of the Hickory Dock Tales. Please welcome to the show, Linda Harkey. Linda, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
We're really excited. Linda and I just had a wonderful chat. You know, we've never met each other before, but we just discovered that we have all our lives have intersected in a number of different ways in a number of different places. And it's just a wonderful testament to how small and wonderful our world is. Please tell us about Hickory Dock Tales.
All right. Well, my journey with my book series, and it is Hickory Dock's Tales, has been a long one. It's in 3 parts, basically. I was an educator, taught school. I also did we've done about 30 years of having hunting dogs, German Shorthair Pointers and Labrador Retrievers, basically. And then also, I've had about another 25 years, the last 25 years, at museums in Oklahoma, the last one being the Gilcrease Museum in Tulsa, where they have an Any Given Child program. And what I did was I helped write curriculum with other docents, and then we serviced all of the first graders in the Tulsa public schools. And it was really by combining those 3 things, education, because children, to me, the most important thing they can do is read, learn to read. And so by combining that with the dogs, the teaching and the dogs, and all the experiences that I had at the museum, I decided I needed to write my books. And I'd been working on manuscripts for a long time, Jed. And so that's what I did. So I wrote my Hickory Dock's Tales book.
That's really, really, really exciting. Kids seem to have a natural attraction to animals. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree with the nature and the animals. And in doing some book readings in different elementary schools, what I've found that they love, like one of my chapters in Hickory Dock's Tales talks about Arnie the Armadillo. Porcupine Pete is another one. And it's about the dogs, the hunting dogs, and how they go out in the fields and in the kennels and how they have experiences with the different animals. And you're right, the children love the animals.
You know, we spent a few minutes talking about Linda's time here on the East Coast, and you're mentioning some animals that kids in Boston, kids in Maryland, kids in New York City probably wouldn't see unless they went to a museum or a zoo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is true, especially armadillos and probably porcupines.
Yeah, yeah. And what a great way to kind of introduce kids to, the broader world of animals. Kids growing up in the city, they may be very familiar with dogs and cats and some smaller furry creatures that we don't want to see. But they don't get a chance to experience porcupines and armadillos and a lot of bird life. And so this is a great way to kind of help those kids take a journey outside of the city.
It really is. And my book, that it goes into the pastures and the fields and the mountains and the rivers and all of the different animals that they come in contact with. And it's also life lessons, because the animals teach them the life lessons. For example, in the long and short of it, one of my chapters in Hickory Doc's Tales, it's about the Labrador Retriever. The family at Hickory Doc's Tales is comprised of 4 German Shorthair Pointers and 1 Labrador Retriever. And the Labrador Retriever finds out that he needs to go to the looking glass in the barn to find out how he's different from the German Shorthair Pointers. And he learns about the real value of differences between himself and the German Shorthair Pointers. And it's kind of a cute story. I think you would like that, Jen.
Yeah, and I love any story that encourages kids to kind of get to know themselves, get to know their own abilities, get to know where they need some help, and give them the courage to reach out and not only ask for help but accept help and to collaborate with others. Absolutely.
Another that is what I love about going and doing the book readings. And I just did the Tucson Book Fair. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
Very familiar with it, yeah.
I had my book signing with Hickory Doc's Tales, and I absolutely loved it. The children, we talked about Doc, the oldest and wisest of the 5 hunting dogs, and Zeke, his annoying younger brother, and all of the antics that they get into. And the children they're very special, and they really enjoyed it. And I love going to book readings. I do book readings at elementary schools, and I have found that they love Willie the Crow. Willie is in Hickory Doc's Tales, Jed. Mm-hmm. It's called Willie's First Secret. And this is about a relationship between a dog, Patch, who's Doc's daughter, and Willie the Crow. And Patch falls into the swimming pool, and she's about to drown. But Willie the Crow is the one who goes and gets Newt and some of the other dogs, and they get Patch out. So they solve a lot of problems in these stories just like children would. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So they're really good stories. The Upside Down Owl, the story about the Upside Down Owl in Hickory Doc's Tales, is all about an owl, and the owl can't figure out why it keeps getting to be upside down. So Doc and the other dogs try to solve a problem. So It's also problem solving for children. And then they find out the upside down owl doesn't even have a name. And every animal and every child needs to have a name. And so the dogs sit on the thinking stump, and they decide to come up with a name for the upside down owl. So that's what that story is all about. So what I try to do is put everything into my stories that you and I have probably experienced, or maybe, during our lifetime, but put it down on their level with nature and animals, which is exactly what they love. And would you mind if I read you one thing that a second grader, it's really short.
Go right ahead.
About my second book, The Remarkable Story of Willie the Crow.
Sure.
And this is part of the series, by the way. And it goes into Willie the Crow and Patch, but this is when they very first met. And so it's kind of an interesting story. And so I read this to pre-K through second graders. Basically, my books are for first through third graders. Mm-hmm. But anyway, this is what one of the little girls said. I liked the book because it was creative. And remember, she's only second grade. Mm-hmm. I liked the book because it was sweet. I love the book because the problem was solved. The picture was awesome. There's more than one picture. I love reading books. It was awesome. So I guess I can say to you that when I see the children in their faces and they look at you when you're reading that book to them and they understand and they ask questions about it, that's what makes me feel great. I don't know how else to say it to you, Jed, but it really does.
Yeah, well, that is wonderful. You know, you touched on it earlier, and I want to make sure we spend some time on it. You have great experience as an educator, not only here in the Boston area, but all throughout the country. How important is it, do you believe, that parents sit down and spend time reading with their kids every day?
I think it's the most important thing that we can do for these children. Children they have to learn the reading. If you read to your child at least 20 or 30 minutes every evening, it encourages them. And if you have them set goals to read so many pages or whatever the goal may be, and then you discuss it, I think it's the most important thing in the world. I think today our society is too, everything is quick with little snippets and things like that. But with a book, a real book, you know, or even if you're using the Kindle, but I love real books. I'm going to be honest with you, Jed, because I come from I'm old. So books are very important to me. But just to turn the page and see the pictures, and I think it's the most important thing a parent can do with their child. It really makes a difference in their learning.
You mentioned setting goals. And I think that's really important. It's certainly important. It's a great lesson for kids to kind of set goals. I want to read this many books this month. But I also think it's really important for us as parents because we can get there's so much going on in our lives and we're being pulled and pushed. And even with our kids, we want to spend time with our kids, but it takes us, we spend an hour driving our kids to dance class and sports practice and being there and being in the stands and being supportive and then cooking and everything else that we're doing for our kids. But that doesn't take away the need to spend time reading with our kids. So I think it's really important too for us to set goals for ourselves to, set that 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day reading with our kids and maybe even developing a calendar where you're putting down, sitting down with your kids and go, what books do we want to read this week? And then marking it down on the calendar so that it's always there and it's harder to kind of, to forget about when it's there and it's set up as a goal and you and your kids can remind each other that you have that goal.
I agree. I think that that's the most important thing that you can do. The most important thing we can do for the next generation is to help them learn to read. And then they can make their own decisions later on in life. But if they don't have the knowledge, then it's hard to go on. I mean, they need the knowledge.
Now go ahead.
What it gives. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say you're writing for young kids right now, and that's you're working with young kids in your different museum jobs, and you're reading your books to young kids. But you spent many, many years as a high school teacher. And I think something that we forget about is that there's a lot of value in reading with our tweens and with our teens. And maybe most likely we're not on the couch sitting down snuggled up reading a picture book with our teenagers. But we can certainly co-read a book and sit down and talk about it. Do you have any experience there, and can you talk a little bit about the value of co-reading and talking about books with our teens?
I had teenage children at one time, and I think it is very valuable and it is very important. And I think what it can do is to encourage them to write also. When they read, then they can write better. And I think it's important in any endeavor that they go into. They're going to be having to write things, whether it's their resume or whatever else. But they've got to be able to read and to understand and to be able to write. And I think it's really important. I really do. And I think it's important to discuss the books with the children too.
Yeah. And, kids are texting these days, and they really need to learn how to text and write sentences because, boy, I see a lot the teenagers write, and it is not in the language that I grew up speaking.
I can tell you, well, it definitely isn't in mine. And my grandson will text us a lot. Uh-huh. And they're abbreviated words. You know what I'm trying to say?
I do.
And I've had a lot of shorthand, business subjects and things like that back in high school. So I can do shorthand, but it's like a shorthand form if you really want to know the honest truth. And so, they do need to learn to be able to, let's say, write everything out. I think that's really important too. So.
What kind of joy are you, now obviously you spent many years teaching, and so that brought you a lot of joy. How is the joy that you're experiencing as an author different from the joy that you experienced as a teacher?
I think as an author, I can take everything that I have in my life, all of, such as the teaching or working at the museum, working with art and paintings with the little children, trying to get things across. And I can just put it all together. And I think it's remembering the dogs, the animals that we've had, and being able to put it down in writing and to have somebody else enjoy it. To me, I love to just sit and think of stories. And I'm sure you probably do too. I think just in your mind, I see a deer. Up here we have deer and we have elk. And I can look at the deer and the elk and I can picture to myself different kinds of stories. I think it just is a completion. I don't know how to say it, but a remembrance of animals and nature. And it's a completion of my life. If you really want to know the honest truth, it's taking all of my life lessons and things that you and I have learned and putting them down in words and expressions that children understand. And they understand it through the animals and through the nature.
Wonderful.
I don't know if that's different. I'm just kind of babbling now, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I do. And it's really beautiful. Now there are 3 Doc Tales now. Do you have more in the works?
Yes. I'm glad you asked me that. The 3rd one is Solitary Toes and Brown-Headed Cowbirds. We actually had we had horses, okay? BJ is a racehorse, and she is racing with a 3-legged German Shorthair Pointer, which was named Deacon. And the cowbird is one of the animals, and children need to learn about cowbirds and their nest and things like that. And then I've got Willie's first secret, second, and third secret that I'll be coming out with that I've already gotten written basically. And now that I'm up in the mountains, I'm going to do The Lonely Bear because we actually, Jed, we had a bear come up on our patio, and so it turned out great.
Okay.
We had our hunting dogs at the time. 5 of our hunting dogs up here were up here with us. And they actually didn't do anything. And the bear came up on the patio, grabbed the grease trap. My husband had left it outside. Grabbed the grease trap, ate out of it. And then he turned around and looked in the patio door. And my husband and I had seen, we saw him. So we were standing there and I was petrified. And he just kind of looked, and then he turned around and acted like he was going to sit at the table. And that was, and we had a dog that was outside. Doc was outside, as a matter of fact. My oldest, he was still around. And so, Doc didn't make any noise at all, and all of a sudden he woke up and he started barking. And the bear trundled off. So, but we call the bear Greasy. So I'll do some stories maybe on Greasy. Anyway, that's what I want to do.
Wow, that is wonderful. I have a little blind beagle that we adopted from a shelter who goes absolutely ballistic every time the mailman comes around and the Amazon driver. I don't know if he could stay quiet if a bear approached. I hope he would, because he'd get eaten.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a little different. I wasn't used to that. But when you said that children on the East Coast, because I remember my son was very young, and so he played outside on concrete in New York, and he didn't get a chance to be on grass. So when we took him back to Oklahoma to visit, he refused to get on grass because he wasn't used to the grass. So this doesn't really have anything to do with the books, except that maybe the books can teach the children a lot about where armadillos hide, okay? Because I talk about the tunnels and things. That's what I'm trying to say. It's good to learn.
Absolutely.
With the different.
Yeah, and we celebrate here on the podcast a lot about different cultures and the fact that books can take us to different parts of the world. Here, I don't think that we appreciate the fact that living here in the United States or living in Canada, you're part of this nation that is incredibly diverse. And, you talk, people think about the cities in New York City, and that the cities on the East Coast are different from the West Coast, but you have mountains and deserts and ocean and it really is all right here. And so books are a wonderful way to take our kids to all the different places that are part of our country.
I absolutely agree. Some of the children at the Gilcrease Museum, some of those first graders, when they would come in and we mentioned a horse, some of them had never even heard of a horse. I mean, I know that sounds strange, but I actually had a child who didn't know what a horse looked like. I mean, that was just one. I mean, most of them know, obviously. But every once in a while you'll find a child or a bison. A bison is more common in Oklahoma, but it's not up in Boston.
Right, exactly.
So they learn through the books. In other words, the books.
Yep, absolutely. As afraid as you were of that bear on your patio, I think I'd be pretty afraid if I had a bison show up in my backyard.
Yeah. I understand.
Well, tell everybody where they can find your website and learn more about the Hickory Dock Tales.
I have a website, www.hickorydockstales.com. Also, Amazon has all three of my series so far. You can find it under Hickory Dock's Tales. And also Archway Publishing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we've been had a fascinating time talking to the author of the Hickory Dock's Tales, Linda Harkey. Linda, thanks so much for being part of the show today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be the photo illustrator of Rad Girl Revolution. Her name is Jennifer Bruno. You don't want to miss this. This is a really, really fun interview. Hey, speaking of fun interviews, we would love to have a fun interview with you and give you the opportunity to tell the world about your great children's book. Being a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast, it's fun, it's easy, and it doesn't cost a thing. That's right. You can learn more about it by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button, let us know about your great book. We'll let you know the next easy steps. Hey, it's going to be really easy for me to say thank you to Linda Harkey. She was a great guest. We also want to thank my producer, Fatima Khan, doing such a wonderful job helping put this show together. And, of course, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking through the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast